critically analyzing global affairs. The Muckrakers on today's News Talk, TNT.
Well, welcome back to the Muckrakers with me, Andrew Eborn, and what an interesting weekend it's been. Here on the Muckrakers, I always say we pledge to continue tackling the most pressing and controversial issues of the day, shining more light and less heat on the matters that really concern you. Today we're going to look at the current geopolitical picture and assess the war danger which remains under Prime Minister newly elected Sir Keir Starmer. And today on the Muckrakers is not just me, but I'm joined by Martin J and Dr. George Szamuely, who joins us again. Now let me tell you about Martin. It's his first time here. He's an award-winning journalist, and his career spanned over 30 years and seen him work in over 50 countries for a host of big media titles. Deliciously on his Twitter feed, he said he's been fired by all the media giants, and CNN said he's a good journalist but a pain in the butt. They probably didn't use the word butt, but it looked good. I love that. It's going to be good. George is a regular on the show, and he's a senior research fellow at Global Policy Institute London. He's written for innumerable publications and is author of Bombs for Peace, NATO's Humanitarian War on Yugoslavia. Gentlemen, welcome to you both.
Good to be with you.
Good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Lovely. Wonderful. I have to start with you, Martin, very quickly. How come you've been fired from virtually all these major media organisations? What's the problem?
I'd like to say it was me, I'm so difficult to work with. But the truth is, it's not that funny. It's just that if you're over the age of 45 and you're a half decent journalist, you are so incompatible with the new generation of younger editors now who are in their 30s and just don't want to work with you because they are the business model now is to get cheaper younger journalists who don't answer back, who don't question any of the narrative that they're fed from their desks, and who basically do just what they're told, and whether it's CNN or Deutsche Welle or any of the other giants I've worked for, you just can't work on that basis. They want to tell you what the story is, and you're standing in front of a building which is on fire and you're saying, well, I'm here, it's on fire. I don't know what you've got on your screen there, but let's do the story. And that gets you a reputation of, and when you hear those words, difficult to work with, those words in journalism usually means really good journalist. That's what it means.
Oh, no, I love it. And I tell you what, difficult to work with. We welcome you on the Muckrakers. You are always welcome here with Andrew Eborn. I only like working with difficult people. It's a thrill. And talking about difficult decisions, we just had Starmageddon last week. Labour got 411 seats, which is a plus 214, 34% of the vote, however. Tories got 121. They were down 252 and 24% of the vote. As I predicted, Lib Dems, I got it bang on, we got 72 seats and they were only 12% of the votes. But bizarrely, Reform, who did incredibly well, they got 14% of the votes. That's more than Lib Dems, but only ended up with 5% of the votes. Let me just get your take on that, George. What do you think? Is that fair for democracy?
No, it isn't. It's absolutely disastrous for democracy because it clearly doesn't reflect the desires of the people. And I don't know whether we're going to talk about France as well, but the French election also reflects a complete negation of what the people wanted. But here in Britain, Labour received fewer votes than it received in 2019, which was supposedly such a disastrous outcome that it led to the resignation of Jeremy Corbyn. Keir Starmer himself, supposedly the man who delivered this landslide for Labour, his majority in his own constituency went down from 28,000 in 2019 to just 7,000. So that's just a reflection of, how unpopular he himself is. And therefore, there's absolutely no correlation between the percentage of the vote, which is and the number of votes that you received, and your number of representatives. So it's just so bizarre that the media are spinning the story of this huge historic landslide for Labour, when it's clear that Labour actually did very poorly. And incidentally, it also significantly underperformed according to what the opinion poll said, which is itself is an interesting story. Remember, the polls were suggesting Labour, a share of the vote would be around 44%. In fact, it was, as you said, 34%. and that its margin over the Tories would be 20 points. In fact, it was only 10 points. So it was the polls were spectacularly off. And again, because the pollsters and the media were very much in the tank with Labour and wanted to push Labour over the finishing line.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? Martin, what's your take on it?
Yeah, it's an outdated draconian voting system, isn't it? I mean, I think I read somewhere that there's only one other country in the world, Belarus, which has the same system of first past the post. It doesn't give any possibility, or at least it restricts quite dramatically the possibility of smaller players coming in. And as Nigel Farage quite correctly said, if there'd been a proportional representation system in Britain, he would have got something like about 95 to 100 seats. So it's not at all fair. Like so many things in Britain, nobody wants to overhaul it. You know, people tend to stay with what they know. But I think George is absolutely right. I mean, a lot of people didn't vote. You know, I mean, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but in Australia, you're legally bound to vote, if not, I think so. And in Belgium as well, if you don't vote, you're fined. I think if we had that system in Britain, who knows what would have happened in the election? It might have been a different turnout because, as George says rightly, there was a very low turnout in general. I think the Labour only got 34% of the vote anyway, which is less than Corbyn in 2017. So the system needs to be, I think, re-spun, re-looked at and rejigged. I doubt if they'll do it, though.
No, you're absolutely right. I can tell you, it's the lowest turnout for more than 20 years. Only 59.9% of the population voted. A sharp decrease. If I remember right, it was about 67.3% that voted in the 2019 election. And it's the worst turnout in a general election since 2001, when only 59.4% voted, which was the lowest figure since World War II. I think you're right. There's a number of places around the world which say that you must vote. And also, I think this an antiquarian system where you sort of go along with your pencil, you put a little cross in a box. There's got to be a better way, doesn't there? In this digital age, we could get an instant result. Isn't that right, George?
Well, that's exactly right. And of course, it's getting more and more that these elections really are become quite meaningless. I mean, we've got the election coming up in November in the US. God only knows what can happen there. I mean, it's almost anything to play for. What we do know is that the final outcome will have very little to do with the actual desires of the public. So, right, how they're going to rejig it and play around with the vote, we're not yet sure.